Tonight I'm thrilled. We have a couple of guests that will be kind of speaking and challenging us. We call these keynotes. And I'm excited to have Luke come and begin our time. I met Luke when he presented at Barnabas a number of years ago, and I was moved by his presentation and by the mission of his organization. We were involved in a Barnabas coaching community, and I've just had the privilege of kind of watching what God's been doing in his life and their organization. And as we were talking about how do we encourage us as a community, I wanted Luke's voice here. You'll see there's a page in the book, and it just says Leading from Scratch, page 15. You can go to that QR code, and I'm sure he'll talk a little bit about that. But Luke has a strong message and a voice for all of us, and he's going to come and share a little bit about leadership intelligence. Luke.
Have you ever had that moment where you realize, I have no idea what I'm doing, right? I've had a ton of those. I literally had a moment where I was riding a Harley Davidson with my wife on the back, and I spilled it in a parking garage, right? No idea what I was doing. I had another time where I cooked the Thanksgiving turkey dinner for my family, and I forgot to take out the organs. Like, sorry, Mom, I had no idea what I was doing. In 2016, my wife was giving birth to our first child, and the midwife didn't show up. So my wife is screaming at me. She's like, honey, do you know how to get this thing out of me? Like, I had no idea what I was doing. Fortunately, we had a healthy baby. Let me tell you about another time. I had no idea what I was doing. So I'm 6'4", and I've been told that's pretty tall. You know, there's some benefits to being tall, but there's also some downsides. Number one, I hit my head every single time I walk into an airplane. Any tall people know what I'm talking about? Come on. Yeah, that correct. Thank you. Greg, you understand. Number two, I have to do a partial squat to do my hair in the morning to see my head in my bathroom mirror. True story. Number three, my wife and I, we literally can't hold hands when we walk. Like, the lengths don't work, the angles don't work, something's going on. It just doesn't work. But for whatever reason, when you're tall, people don't want to know about this stuff. They don't ask about this stuff. Instead, they always ask me the same question. They say, Luke, what sports did you play growing up, right? And I'm like, well, that's kind of peculiar. That's an odd opening question. That's like seeing a deer and asking the deer what it was like to be in the movie Bambi. Like, not every deer was in the movie Bambi, right? Same idea. Like, so my response to them, it's always the same. I say, hey, I'm actually pretty new at being tall. They're like, well, what do you mean? Well, here's the deal. I went into high school at 5'2" and 82 pounds, right? I was so small, I was still taking baths in the sink, right? Fast forward to college, and I gained some height, but I was awkwardly still the same weight. And now, when you're tall, for better or for worse, people will choose you as the leader. Now, it was around that time that I was on a 2-month mission trip to India. So naturally, I'm unsurprised that they chose me as the leader. Of course they did, because I'm tall, right? So I'm on this plane to India, and I'm not making this up. One of my coworkers on that small mission trip tells me, I have no intention of following you this summer. Like, how's that for a start? Now, keep in mind, this is a 2-month trip to the hottest place on earth, right? Like, this is going to be a difficult summer, but I figure, hey, with my expert leadership, everything is going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay. Now, I wish I could tell you I turned the team around, that it was a summer that everyone remembers for the good reasons, and that it was a life-changing experience. Well, I'll tell you this. It was a life-changing experience, but not in the way I had hoped. Right? Over the next few days, I watched my team implode under my expert leadership. Not only did people hate me, but I really started to hate myself. This natural-born leader with a height and everything really had no idea what he was doing. Maybe you've been in a similar situation before. You're in a leadership role when you realize, I have no idea what I'm doing. Maybe you had a project you were in charge of and you didn't know where to start. Or maybe you had a team conflict that you didn't know how to resolve. Or maybe people were counting on you to turn the ship around, and if you're being honest with yourself, you didn't think you had what it takes. A simple look at the state of business today will show you that it's deeply common for organizations to stall out, likely due to leaders who really have no idea what they're doing. In his great book, Scaling Up, Vern Harnish shows us that of 30 million firms in the United States, only 4% ever reach $1 million in revenue. Only 0.4% ever reach $10 million in revenue, and only 0.0004 ever reach $50 million in revenue, so on and so forth. Summary, organizations get stuck. Now, not everyone wants to grow their organization, but for those who do and are stuck, the culprit is typically the same: poor leadership. It's poor leadership. For so long, I didn't know what I was doing in leadership. The effort was there, the desire was there, but the results were, if I'm being honest, average. And if you're like me and you want to grow the organization that you lead, focus first on becoming what I call an intelligent leader. Intelligent leadership is the precondition to scaling a healthy organization. Now, there are 3 qualities that make up an intelligent leader: compelling vision, executive presence, and time-tested character. There are a myriad of different leadership styles, and a lot of them work really well. But I'll tell you this: no leader can grow a healthy organization over time if they neglect one of those 3 qualities of an intelligent leader. It was April 2014. I was on my honeymoon with my new bride, and I asked her a life-changing question. I said, "Sweetie, what do you think about me when we get back quitting my job?" She's like, "You're kidding me, right? Like, this is the guy I married." Jokes aside, she said yes, right? I was going to start this nonprofit. She knew that God was leading us to do this, and she said yes. I married a gal who not only believed in me, but was willing to see me quit a high-paying job with a clear career path, all within days of getting married, to pursue the Lord's direction in our life. Praise God. Like, I better not screw this up, though, right? Like, I got a big opportunity. So we got back. I quit my job. Fast forward 1 year. I'd built up the bones of a successful nonprofit organization, hosted a fundraising dinner, and believe it or not, even had a salary. My mother-in-law's like, praise God, right? Even had a salary. Next step, I got to hire someone, right? I can't do this thing alone. So I hired a friend, and he moved his family to the city that we lived in to come work with us. I'm really humming now. My team just doubled. 100% growth. Come on, like, that's good stuff. 100% growth. So he comes and joins us in Pasadena, and things were just going perfect until they weren't. I'll never forget the day. He looked at me through tears, and he says, "Luke, I've hated working for you. I've hated working for you." I was sure it was April Fool's Day or something, but this is the real deal. I could not believe it. When my first employee left, half my team left, and all of my pride left. The problem is that I had no idea how I actually failed. Intelligent leaders practice compelling vision. This is the first element of intelligent leadership. Intelligent leaders practice compelling vision. Compelling vision is a dream with an invitation. Compelling vision is a dream with an invitation. Now let's imagine if you run an organization or a ministry, that I'm sitting down right now with your team and I ask them 3 questions. I want you to ask yourself internally, how closely does your team articulate the same answers to these questions that exist in your head? You ready? Question number 1, where are we headed? Do your team members know where you're headed? This is the vision of the organization. This is your desired position. You need a clear and simple vision statement for people to rally around. Microsoft in the early 90s had this vision statement: a computer on every desk in every home. Guess what? They did it. They did it. They had a great, clear, simple vision statement that answered the question, where are we headed? Question number 2, how do we get there? Do your team members know how you're getting where you're going? There are a lot of ways that they can do that, but are they rowing in the same direction? Are they even on the same boat together? This is the mission of the organization. It defines your direction and your approach. You need a simple mission statement for people to understand how they are to work. If you've ever seen a TED Talk, you'll immediately understand their mission when I say it. Spread ideas. So good. So simple. That is how they accomplish their vision, by spreading ideas. Question number 3. How will we behave? Does your team know how they are to behave? These are the core values of the organization. They tell you who gets hired, who gets promoted, who gets terminated, who thrives at your org. I've led a ministry called the Go Fund for the last 8 years, and one of our core values is this. We obsess over unreached people groups. If you're not obsessed with reaching UPGs, you're going to hate working at the Go Fund. I mean, we're really weird. We love this stuff. We talk about it all the time. And everyone at the Go Fund knows this is how we behave, and this is one of the things that makes us us. So how did your team do? Did they answer the questions well, the same as the answers that were in your head? Or are they still searching for that compelling vision that hasn't yet been extended to them in the form of an invitation? My first employee lasted 90 days. I had a compelling vision, but I didn't invite him into it. I had a dream, but he didn't know it, and there wasn't a place for him in it. A compelling vision is a dream with an invitation. Cast compelling vision, and you'll immediately grow your leadership intelligence. Back in my college days, I went on a road trip with a couple of peers, and like all road trips, every gasoline refill coincides with refills for the stomach, right? Slim Jims, chips, and Gatorade. I mean, come on, that's like the healthy three-legged stool of the diet of any college student. So like any good college student, that's what we got. We made this routine stop, and I stepped outside into very cold weather. I think we were in Colorado, and I eyeballed a fresh pile of snow. And I thought to myself, it would make sense to build a really hard-packed snowball and throw said snowball at the chest of my mentor 10 years my senior. And so I did. I crafted that tightly packed snowball, and I hurled it as hard as I could right at his solar plexus. And I awaited his response, and he looked at me like a deer in the headlights. And then he went back to pumping the gas. I thought, something went wrong here. This was a miss. Why did he not think this was as funny as I did? Later that day, my mentor and I had a chat. And I asked him, why did you respond the way that you did? And I'll never forget how he responded to me. He said, Luke, nobody likes to follow a clown during times of crisis. That's a really odd response. I thought that was hilarious. He says, no, Luke, you don't understand. I've been watching you the last couple of years, and I've seen your behavior. You do things like this all the time. Nobody likes to follow a clown during times of crisis. And he was keying into something that he'd seen in me over the years. I was trying to be a leader, but my peers and all the strangers at the gas station that day saw me as a clown, not as a leader. Intelligent leaders practice executive presence. Intelligent leaders practice executive presence. This is the second quality of intelligent leadership. Executive presence is behavior that inspires trust. Now, what is trust? Well, trust is confidence in someone's character and their competence. Trust is confidence in someone's character and their competence. If I trust you, it means I'm confident in your character. I know that you have rock-solid integrity and a good agenda and your competence. I know that you're capable in your role and that you'll get good results. If I don't trust you, it's called distrust. Distrust is suspicion of someone's character or their competence. This means I'm not confident in either your character, like I'm not sure if you have good integrity. I'm not sure if your agenda may be a little bit crooked. And I'm not confident in your competence. I'm not sure you're going to be able to do the job or that you'll get good results. Executive presence is the stuff that helps you build trust or helps you to develop others' confidence in you. If compelling vision causes people to say, that guy or gal is a little bit crazy, executive presence extends the sentence to say, but we're going to follow them. You get that? It builds trust. So here are 6 elements of executive presence. Thrive in each of these, and you will become a trust-building Jedi. Number 1, articulate communication. Articulate communicators have collected, organized thoughts, and they can put them into words. They have a developed vocabulary, and they don't distract people when they speak or use erroneous concepts. When called on to speak, they almost always have something to say, even if it's, I don't know. If you don't develop the skill over time, people will look to other people to speak when it counts. And in times of crisis, people look to the leaders to speak. Number 2, self-awareness. High self-awareness is all about knowing how you are experienced by other people. You can't develop this on your own. You have to ask other people, how do you experience me? They have to hold up a clean mirror so you can see how you look to other people. If you don't develop high self-awareness, you'll continue to get in crashes, changing lanes with other cars in your blind spot. It's expensive, it's frustrating, and it really slows you down. Number 3, selfless listening. Selfless listening means listening with the other person in mind. People normally want one of 3 things from a listener. You ready? I love this one. My wife taught me this. They want one of 3 things from a listener. They either want a tissue. That means, hey, I want empathy from you. I want to know that you care and that you feel what I'm feeling. They want a tissue. Secondly, they want a toolbox. All the men here are like, yep, that's what I want, a toolbox, right? They give me a solution. I want advice. Help fix my problem. Give me a solution, a toolbox. And then there's this 3rd category that I love. This is what I normally want, a bucket. A bucket. I just want you to listen. I don't want your empathy right now, right? I don't want you to solve my problem. Just let me get this out of my head and bear my burden with me. Giving your listener what they want is the key to selfless listening. A tissue, a toolbox, or a bucket. Number 4, charitability. Think about the last time you got cut off on the freeway, right? What was the story you told yourself about that other person, right? Was it, hey, that guy's a jerk and probably got his license at Walmart? Or did you think, oh my word, maybe his wife is going into labor and the midwife didn't show up. Wink, 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 come on. Let me slow down so I can let him get there in time. Many people struggle with believing stories about other people that aren't true. Charitability is all about issuing the most ridiculously generous storylines about other people, even when they don't deserve it. Number 5, consistency. Think about the last time you walked into the office. What was the first thing you said? What was the first thing you did? Now compare that to the day before. Was it similar or was it different? Intelligent leaders have a consistency about them. This means they're relatively the same in behavior on day 1, on day 2, on day 3. If people have no idea who's coming into the office each day, they're going to be hesitant. Inconsistent leaders produce hesitant followers. And you can grow your trust by centering yourself in consistent behavior and patterns. Number 6, clean appearance. An unclean or inappropriate appearance is the easiest way to immediately tell people, I'm not the leader you're looking for. It's the easiest way to do it without even saying a word. You can ruin trust. You can lose a deal and destroy the always important first impression. Know your audience and show up in such a way as to eliminate distractions. My mentor taught me about executive presence. By constantly being the snowball thrower, I would never gain the trust of other people. And despite my ambition, I was not going to make it as a leader in the long run without a good dose of executive presence. Executive presence is behavior that inspires trust. Grow in the 6 behaviors that make it up, and you'll develop yourself into the intelligent leader that you know you can be. Now, great risk to my reputation, I'm going to take you back even further to junior high. Now, I was a decent kid. I grew up in a loving family, but for some reason, I constantly found myself at the center of controversy. I was very interested in winning the approval of my peers at just about any cost. And so one time, along with these peers that for some reason I called friends, I found myself taking turns pelting rocks and other objects at school buses as they drove by. Right? Come on, like not a very good idea. Things went south when a rock actually shattered the windshield of one of the buses driving by. So it slammed on the brakes, the vandals scattered, including me. The difference was they all went to the designated hideout, and I ran all 1.1 miles home as fast as I could. Now, you know I was short, so that probably took me 45 minutes. I was guilty, and I was very afraid. Now, the day after that incident, I thought I'd gotten away with it. My father was driving me to baseball practice, and he point blanked me. He said, "Son, were you involved in the school bus incident yesterday?" And in one of those pivotal life moments, I wish I could say I told the truth and said, "Father, it was me, you've got me." But instead, I lied. I said, "No, Dad, I wasn't." My dad gave me several more chances to fess up, but I continued to take that bait of self-preservation. And that's when he got me. See, my dad had already talked to the principal of the school, and the principal caught the other boys. They fessed up, except they blamed the whole thing on me. I was caught, I was embarrassed, and I was actually later arrested for that incident. I had acted like the fool that I was, and I had no alibi. My problem was one of character. See, I hadn't yet built it. Intelligent leaders grow time-tested character. And this is the third quality of intelligent leadership. Intelligent leaders grow time-tested character. Time-tested character is unimpeachable credibility. Unimpeachable credibility. Executive presence, it's all about what's on the outside, the things that are seen. This has importance. It's not superficial. But time-tested character is different. That's all about what's on the inside. It's the most difficult to see, it's the hardest to build, and it's impossible to fake over time. Additionally, it has the greatest ability to tank your credibility overnight as if it never existed. Like, you can get away in the short run without character, but in the long run, it will always come back to haunt you if you don't have it. Time-tested character is the secret ingredient of leaders who finish well. Now, there are two components that make up time-tested character. Number one is integrity. Someone with integrity is concerned with doing the right things no matter who's watching. They're not as concerned with who is right as with what is right. And the second component is intent. Someone with good intent has a pure baseline agenda in their orientation toward other people that consists of two things. Number one, and I would actually say this to people if they don't know it. Number one, I mean you no harm. And number two, I seek your greatest good. If people are doubting your agenda, literally say those things out loud to them. Hey, I want you to know before we start this meeting, I mean you no harm, and I seek your greatest good today. When you have character like this, over time, you can't be touched. Those who accuse you don't stand a chance. Their attempts to take you down will be no match for your solid track record of integrity and intent. And you'll see it because others will come to your defense when you're wrongly accused. As a junior hire, I did not have character. And that came back to bite me. Now, fortunately for me, character can be built, and it's often through fire that time-tested character is forged for the difficult path ahead. Time-tested character is unimpeachable credibility. Grow time-tested character like this, and you'll become an intelligent leader over time. About 2 months into my trip to India, about halfway through my 2-month trip to India, I had a complete breakdown. I was completely alone, I was sick, I was very hot, and I was with a team of people who increasingly had close to zero confidence in my ability to lead them. And I was starting to agree with them. So in desperation, I turned to Scripture, specifically to Proverbs, and I got stuck on Proverbs 12:15, which says, "The way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man listens to advice." Now, fortunately for me, God humbled me on that trip and taught me the great virtue of listening to advice as a means to escape the trap of the fool and find success. Today, we're not even talking about the components of a healthy organization. That's a talk for another time. Before we get there, we have to understand that intelligent leadership is a prerequisite and a precondition to scaling a healthy organization. And it consists of 3 things: compelling vision, executive presence, and time-tested character. Over the last decade, I've tirelessly applied these leadership principles that I've learned from other people, from books, from podcasts, from mentorship, and most importantly, from the Word of God. And thanks to God and others, I no longer have to say, I have no idea what I'm doing when it comes to leadership. By God's grace, I invite you to join me as together we pursue becoming intelligent leaders for the good of God's kingdom and for others. Thank you.
There's a lot of stuff in there. But thank you, Luke. Some of you didn't mention, I listened, Luke started a podcast, and it's called Leading from Scratch. And if you go on that, you hear more about him breaking these points down. And what I really appreciate, Luke, is just your vulnerability and your honesty. That's a leader that I want to learn from and I want to follow. So thank you for sharing. I'd love to have you stand, and I want you to think of one thing that jumped out of you as Luke shared. One thing. You heard three main things, lots of other things. Just one thing. Share it with someone at your table. Don't walk out. Just stay here. Just stand up. Move your legs.